I want to address a question that comes up a lot, and it's a question that also gets evaded and dismissed. What level of testosterone is low enough that it warrants interventional endocrinology, meaning starting TRT? I've found that calculated free testosterone is more correlated with negative symptoms and positive symptoms. So I want to address a question that comes up a lot. And it's a question that also gets evaded and dismissed because it's a little bit more complex to answer. And the question is two parts. What level of testosterone is low enough that it warrants interventional endocrinology, meaning starting TRT because the levels suck? And question number two is, what kind of level should I be aiming for on TRT to feel my best, be my healthiest, and fix my hypogonadal symptoms, ideally all three of those things combined? The problem with this question is that there's not a set number. And anyone who is just saying anything below this number needs treatment and this number is perfect for everyone is objectively wrong, because it's more nuanced than that for a number of reasons. But I think the question can be reframed to be able to actually provide value to people who are following this line of thinking, because it's a very reasonable line of questioning, which is, what levels of testosterone typically do we see hypogonadal symptoms in? And when people resolve their negative symptoms and are happy and healthy and feeling good on TRT, what average numbers do they tend to have? And this question can be answered, maybe not in literature or in forums, but as someone who's been working with thousands of men all over the world for many years, I can definitely give some insights on what these numbers typically look like. So, in my experience, free testosterone negative symptoms tend to occur with a free testosterone below about 400 picomole per liter. Now, this is not a hard line. This does not mean that you are fantastic and thriving and everything's sick if you have a 401 and everything is terrible if you have 399. This is not how it works, but we have to draw a line somewhere, but it's a thick line. So anywhere between 350 and 450, I would say, is where most people start to experience negative symptoms. And in nanograms per deciliter, this is an 11 or 11.5 if you want to be specific. Now, it's important to recognize that the higher the free testosterone, the lower balance of probability that the negative symptoms are coming from the free testosterone. So for example, if someone has a free testosterone of 50 picomole per liter, which is virtually nothing, this would be like a 1.4 in nanograms per deciliter, they're going to feel pretty damn terrible. And it is most likely that this is the root cause of what's going on. It is extremely likely. It is as likely as water being wet. But if someone has, let's say, a free testosterone of 450, which if I convert that over is just under a 13 nanograms per deciliter, they could still be hypogonadal. But if their symptoms were so severe that they couldn't get out of bed, they want to self-delete, they have zero sexual function whatsoever, their mood is terrible, their body composition is garbage, it is possible that suboptimal testosterone levels are playing into this, but it becomes more likely from a probability standpoint, not from an individual diagnostic standpoint, this is an educational video, that their symptoms may be coming from somewhere else primarily, rather than this being the primary issue. But in my experience, most people start to experience symptoms when they have a free testosterone between 200 and 300 picomole per liter, which is about a 5.7 up to about a 8.6 nanograms per deciliter, with a lot of people also experiencing symptoms up to a 400, which, as I said, is about 11.5. This is where people start to not feel as good as they should. Now, if we look at total testosterone, this is going to be the measurement of what your body is producing, or if you're taking testosterone, how much you're taking. Now, there is a lot of debate regarding that total testosterone is useless and free testosterone is the only thing that matters. And then other people will say that Total testosterone is the easiest thing to go off, and free testosterone usually comes into alignment because SHBG settles. I don't think either of those things are proven conclusively, but in my experience, when it comes to experiencing low testosterone symptoms, free testosterone measured as an average using a calculation is the most correlated with negative symptoms. So most people will experience a low testosterone symptomology when their free testosterone is below 15 nanomole per liter because of how it impacts free testosterone when SHBG and albumin have average levels, which in nanograms per deciliter is 432, to put it precisely. Now, with that said, depending on your SHBG levels, depending on your albumin levels, SHBG tends to fluctuate more. You could absolutely be hypogonadal with a total testosterone up to 20 nanomole per liter, which translates to 576 nanograms per deciliter. And if your SHBG is particularly high, this could go all the way up to a 25 nanomole per liter or a 720 nanogram per deciliter. The problem is that this is now the top quartile of the reference range. And people will be saying, well, that basically means that any number within the range could be hypogonadal. It could be, depending on a variety of factors, but the main thing is that the reference range has been in free fall for a long time. If people don't believe this to be true, it's very difficult to convince people of facts when they deny them. But I've been in this industry full-time for 6 years. I have watched in real time the reference range drop every year. The reference range is not dictated by human biology or medical standards. It is simply a calculation of the mean and the standard deviation of the average number of X guys who've had their testosterone levels checked. The problem is that the main indication for getting your testosterone levels checked is prostate symptoms. And most people who are having prostate symptoms are older men who are unwell. Therefore, the average that you're looking at in the testosterone levels on the reference range are not representing healthy men. So if you look at a reference range for a woman's progesterone level, there are different ranges based on where she is in her cycle or if she's menopausal. For a man, the reference range is the same if you're 18 or 85. This doesn't make any sense, but these are the guideposts that doctors who have less expertise in the field or people on Reddit who think that they are experts in the field seem to go off.
If you've just started TRT, it is completely normal to feel overwhelmed and confused. There's a lot of new territory to cover, and there is a lot of conflicting information. I wrote TRT 101 so that you can have everything that you need to know in an instruction manual in one place that you can refer back to, that you can have all the questions answered before they even come up. TRT 101 is my best practice approach for TRT from start to finish, and it contains everything that you need to avoid all the challenges and pitfalls that I've seen come up in my clients over the last 5 years. You can check it out via the link below.
So this is problematic. And this is why it's so important that if you are having negative symptoms, you go to someone who knows what they're doing. So if you're in the US, you go see Victory Men's Health. If you're in Australia, you go see Primal Zone. If you're in Europe, you go and see TRT Baltic. If you're in the UK, you go see my friend Dr. Max Draper. There are also plenty of other people who know what they're doing, but there's way more people who don't. So if you would like a list of people who do know what they're doing, go onto my website. The link is in the bio. There is a TRT FAQ. You get a pop-up to download it. One of the most frequently asked questions is who is good at doing this job? I have a list of people at the back. I do not have financial relationships with these people. These are just people who are in my network, who I can endorse, who I can say, go and see them. They're good at what they do. You'll be taken care of. But it is so important when you're getting diagnosed for whether your symptoms are due to hypogonadism that they are determined to be what's called intractable, meaning that they can't be resolved by other things. So if your luteinizing hormone levels are through the sky and you've got primary testicular failure, you still need to eat well and look after yourself and do all those great things for your body, but it's not going to increase your testosterone levels. Conversely, if you have LH levels that are suppressed, like at a 1 or 1.5 or a 2, and you're saying, oh, well, I need TRT, my levels are low, if you can identify that that is due to poor diet and lifestyle factors, and these things can be resolved. Now, this can also be suppressed due to pituitary issues. There can be intractable reasons why this is low. But if you can identify that this is suppressed and your body is actively suppressing this production because you're doing something wrong and you're unhealthy, then you might want to fix that. Because if you don't, that gap between the testosterone level that you're injecting and the testosterone level that you should be producing is side effect territory. And side effects with TRT treatment can be worse than being hypogonadal, depending on how bad they are. So the next part of the question is, what level should I aim for on TRT? And there is absolutely a ballpark range that 99% of people fall in. It's just a pretty damn big range. So again, if we go back to using my little converter here so that no one whinges and moans that I get the numbers wrong, I see the lowest level that most people get symptom resolution at, assuming they're doing frequent injections, assuming that we're not measuring the levels immediately after doing a shot. This is a stable level, which you want to inject as often as you will. Daily is best, 3 times a week is minimum, but you want to administer the levels closer to the peak to maintain stability, which is basic pharmacodynamic 101. And for testosterone and cypionate, that's at about 24 to 36 hours. So the lowest level I see for free testosterone that tends to improve negative symptoms is about a 600. This is picomole per liter for free. This converts to about a 17. Now, again, you have to apply some common sense, which is becoming more uncommon as the years go by. If you have severe hypogonadal symptoms with a free testosterone of 400 picomole per liter, you're probably not going to feel incredible at a 600 because you've only increased your levels by 50%. However, if you started with a free testosterone, like I said before, of 50, and you're going to 12x your testosterone, this is a good place to start. Again, you may need more over time, but if you've never drank coffee before, you don't start with a triple shot long Mac. You start with a half shot latte and you work up. So you want to give your body time to adjust to the levels. But if I look at a broad range of men, the lowest level that I see someone actually resolve their symptoms at is probably about a 600. Now, in terms of the average level, again, if I extrapolate this out over a whole bunch of people, over all different ages, over all different health scenarios, the average that people do their best or start to do their best is between 800 picomole per liter, which is a 23 nanogram per deciliter free, up to about a 1200 picomole per liter, which is a 34 nanogram per deciliter free. Now, some men, in order to achieve symptom resolution, and again, assuming it's well tolerated and it's not causing side effects, can need to go up to a 1500 picomole per liter, which is a 43 nanograms per deciliter. And some outliers will need to go up to about a 17 to 1800 picomole per liter, which can be all the way up to a 50 nanogram per deciliter. That's a big range. But the thing is that we're talking about healthy 21-year-old men all the way up to unhealthy 90-year-old men. So there's a huge range of people. There is no number that you can just pull out of your ass that is physiological on the left and supraphysiological on the right. Because what is physiological for a 21-year-old would be supraphysiological for an unhealthy 80-year-old. Because although they are both males, the amount of testosterone that would be physiologically optimal and relevant for their body is impacted by their age, their health, and their genetics. The other thing that we can't measure is androgen receptor level expression. So some men, even who are young and healthy, do better on the lower end of that scale, and anything above that causes side effects. Other men who are older and unhealthy require more testosterone to have an effect because of their androgen receptor expression. So there is nuance and there is a big range that people fall in to optimize their testosterone. But these are the goalposts that I see most people fall in. And as I said, there is that middle range that most people, the majority of people within the spectrum of all men on TRT do their best at. But it is so important that videos like this and videos done by my colleagues and videos done by anyone who knows what they're talking about are taken as educational videos, not as personalized medical advice. because your unique circumstances and your unique response to testosterone is not able to be diagnosed and treated by someone on YouTube that you've never spoken to. So what these videos do is they allow you to seek out a practitioner who's not going to have some kind of uninformed, regimented approach to say that everything has to stay within the reference range. Because most men, based on what I've just told you, require being at least a little bit above the reference range in order to feel their best. Now, the question that I haven't fully answered here is, what total testosterone does that typically look like? And for most people, and I've said this in my book, and I'll say it again because the book has aged well. I waited a long time to write the book, so I had a lot of data. If someone starts on about 140 to 150 milligrams of testosterone per week in optimally divided doses, the average person, so not including outliers don't disprove rules, this is statistics and science 101, but I know people often don't understand this. There are exceptions to every rule. But the majority of people who start with 140 to 150 milligrams per week will have an average total testosterone of 25 nanomole per liter, which is 721 nanograms per deciliter, up to a 35 nanomole per liter, which is just over 1,000 nanograms per deciliter. This, for a lot of people, is a good place to start. But depending on your unique factors, depending on your baseline levels, this may be too much, this may be too little. But everyone responds to testosterone a little bit differently in terms of their symptoms, in terms of their adjustment process, and in terms of how much they get out of a milligram per milligram of testosterone. You want to inject it into the muscle, works better. So most people will need to have a total testosterone, if your SHBG is very low, maybe between 25 and 35 nanomole per liter to start with can be optimal for a lot of people. But most people, for their treatment, will fall between 30 nanomole per liter, which is 865, up to about a 50 nanomole per liter, which is 1,440 nanograms per deciliter. But some men, to get an optimal symptom resolution and response and still be healthy and still be thriving, will be all the way up to a 60 nanomole per liter, which is about a 1,700 nanograms per deciliter. That is a big range. And my approach, which I think is the correct approach, I'm obviously biased, but biased for a reason, is I believe it's best to start on the bottom end of that, adjust to it, tolerate it, see how you go. And if your blood work is healthy and your symptoms haven't been fully resolved, you can gradually titrate up in increments with blood work and symptomatic reviews, as well as biofeedback such as sleep and blood pressure and all that stuff that your provider should be monitoring. And you simply work up by the minimal amount that you can measure per injection in increments that are supervised and reviewed to find that sweet spot in that broad range for you. More is not always better, more is not always needed, and some people will only tolerate the lower amount, but it's because of their receptor expression, which means they're getting a stronger androgenic effect, or they have health issues they need to resolve and improve to be able to tolerate a more optimal dose. One of the things I see the most commonly in troubleshooting cases for guys who come to see me privately is that their level is here and they need to be up here, but because they have health issues, mainly due to diet and lifestyle or other undiagnosed conditions, they're not able to push their dose up high enough to be able to tolerate where they need to be. So they have hypogonadal symptoms on the left with no side effects, but resolved hypogonadism with side effects on the right. And they're trying to find a sweet spot that doesn't exist. The real issue is they need to be able to improve their health metrics, either via their habits or via correcting another issue, to be able to tolerate the testosterone level that they will thrive at. And this is where Dr. John Chrysler would say there's an art and a science to TRT. The longer I've been in this industry, the more I know that to be true. So I hope that helped. If you're in the US, please contact Victory Men's Health. They are the best. They will be able to take care of everything that you need. And if you are outside of the US, if you're in Australia, if you're in Europe, if you're anywhere else in the world, you can either work with one of my clinics that I've partnered with, or you can contact me privately if you require a consultation. But I would hope that with this information, as well as the ebooks and the various other videos I've put out on YouTube, that you should be able to get your treatment managed without me needing to help you personally. So hope that helped, and I'll see you all on the next one. Thank you for watching.
Stop doing all the things you know you shouldn't be doing and start doing all the things you know you should be doing. If people are looking for where to start, it's that. Testosterone is what creates confidence. It's what gives the capacity for leadership. It's what drives the ability for one to become courageous and competent in their skill set. If you go on TRT and then live a lifestyle that you